Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Renault Master Camper Conversion. In this episode I'm going to be fitting an inverter charger to my system. Originally it was going to go up here, but it's quite heavy, so we've got a new plan. We're going to build a platform here and put it on here. I have previously made a couple of videos because we had to upgrade this ground cable to 95 millimeters, which is done. So I had to do that before I'd done some other works, which was on the 240 volt system, because I had to take all this board off, so I've done it at the same time. But I'm actually going to start to fit the inverter now. So yeah, I'm building a platform and I'll show you what I'm doing here to start with. Before I fit the inverter, we need to make sure our cabling is sufficient. That includes the ground cable. Now, the cables for the inverter will be 95 millimeters squared, and this is only 35 millimeters squared. So I need to remove this cable and put in a 95 millimeter squared ground cable. So I'm going to remove that cable now, get my new cable crimped with new lugs and fit it in there. My 95 millimeter cable has come. You're going to need a hydraulic press to put the lugs on, because it does need some pressure to get them on there. I didn't actually have any black heat shrink, so I've just put red on there. Doesn't really matter because it's in the wall. We know what it is. But I've ordered some more heat shrinks. I need to get this board back on so I've got power, because at the moment I'm running off this little battery and all I have is just one light. So I'm going to bolt this onto this ground point here that I have. I previously done this and took all the paint off, so it's obviously bare metal. So I'm going to get this bolted on now, and then I can put this board back on. That is now bolted to the chassis. I used a bit of Loctite on there because it's hidden behind the wall. We don't want it to come loose, so it's best to be safe and use some Loctite. We don't have to worry about it coming loose by vibration now. Okay, so before I can fit the inverter, we're going to have to make a platform. Now, I'm going to sit it on top of the wheel arch because it's the best place. I don't want to put too much framework in because I'm always trying to save weight. The wheel arch is a sturdy part of the structure, so yeah, that's going to be weight bearing. And then what I've done is I've put a level on here, and or a straight edge should I say, on here, pushed it down tight so it's flat with that, and then I've drawn under it to follow that line. Then I've measured this line to the floor, 33 centimeters, and then I've transferred 33 centimeters to here. So I've got my first piece in. I'm just working on my second piece now. It's got a bit of a curve on it, so I'm going to get that one cut, blowtorched, fitted, and then we have our corner support there. The next job would be to put a support this way, screw it on here. I'm going to obviously use a thicker gauge support here, and then I'll use a 3x2 here coming upright because I need to mount a isolator onto that, so I'll do that. So I'm going to have to make these cables as well. I obviously have to replace all these cables because they've got to be 95 millimeters squared. So before I do any of these cables, I'm basically starting to build the frame. So yeah, I'm going to crack on with this frame, do this corner piece, and then I can disconnect these batteries, make these cables, and I can make this little sort of wall in between here, which is a support basically, which is going to support this rail this way. And that will do. It doesn't need the framework going that way. I'm sitting on 18mm ply, and the ply is just going to extend a little bit past the inverter. So then the red cable will come up to an isolator, and then it will go up to a like a junction, and then one will go into the inverter. Then we'll just use this cable here to go to the junction, because we only need the cables from the inverter to the batteries. And then the same with the negative, we'll go up to a shunt, to the shunts. The shunt's going to be moved because the shunt has to be before any connection. So the shunt, and then from the shunt we'll go to the buzz bar and to the inverter, and obviously the ground cable will go to the shunt as well. Now that little corner's done, we'll move on to making the front rail. So I had this piece of timber already done, which is handy, and I've screwed it on there, packed it up roughly to the right height. And then I had this piece, which was a supporting leg over there on this corner, but I didn't really need it there because this one is supporting the weight of the bench. This one just ties it into the frame. I just put that in when I started building the frame, and I realised that that's just extra weight in the van we don't need. So I took it out, and then I've made use of it here. So now I've laid that one down there, I can measure from there to there, because I know this is the right height because I've measured from the floor up. So I measured from there to there, which is 248, I think. So I'm going to go and cut this 248, and then the offcut will be enough for the floor plate. Trying to square the floor plate is going to be the difficult bit. I should be able to just square it off the floor. Once I have got this piece in there here, then I can run a square. I could run a square there now along the floor and mark this, but I want to cut this to the length I need first, and then whatever's left I'll run a square up there, because I want to try and cut off some of this screw hole. I don't think I will, but it's going to be under the frame anyway, so that'll be alright. Or I could even screw it to the floor with that. So that's that. I'm going to get that done. I don't need to put a tie frame across here, because the ply will screw to here, it will screw to here, it will be fixed, so the ply will tie it into the wall. And then we have a platform for our inverter. Now built my framework, so I'm ready to put my deck on top, and I'll be ready to fit the inverter. But before I fit the inverter, I'm going to make new battery cables. They've got to be a bit longer, and they've got to be 95mm, and then I will be putting my isolator switch here, so that's why I wanted this thicker timber here. I had a bit of a change of plan at the bottom, because we got these little bit handles that stick out. I put a bigger bit of timber at the bottom, the 89mm, and then just notch that out so we can slide them batteries. That one can slide that way anyway, but this one will be able to slide out without getting stuck. So that's that done. I'm going to get the deck done now and then move on with the wiring. I received my 95mm cable the other day, so I put a lug on it the other day. I knew I'd need one on there, but I just didn't know the length, so I thought I'll get one on there and I can bolt it onto the battery. And then I'm not going to pull it tight, so I'm going to push a bit of slack on it so it's got a bit of movement. We don't want it tight. And then I'm going to line it up and mark it where I want to cut it. So I'll put the lug on this side, and I don't want to waste any of this cable, it's expensive, so I'm trying to cut it exactly where I want it to save each length of cable. I should be okay on the live cable, positive cable. It's the neutral, because I need to go back to the chassis as well, which is already done, and I only have a metre of each. So I'm going to mark this, cut it, and then get that lug on there, and then we got our first connection done. Then I'm going to move on to the negative connection of this battery. I don't have any cable cutters thick enough to cut this cable, so I'll just use a hacksaw to cut through it. It's a bit of a tricky job, but I don't do enough of this to warrant buying cutters that size, so hacksaw does it. That hacksaw will do. It's best to do the battery cables together, because you want them the same length. This means the resistance between the batteries is going to be the same, so it's best to do that. So I'm going to get these lugs pressed on now. This is my hydraulic press, but before I do that, I'm going to strip the ends. So I'm going to just line it up there, mark where I've got to cut, and then strip both of them ends, and then I'll put the heat shrink onto the cable before I press it, because it's hard to get it around this shape. So I'm going to get that done, and I'll show you how it's going. I'm cutting these cables. I'm just scoring a line around the cable, and then I'm going to just push the knife into the cable, not move the knife, because we don't want to nick the strands. Just press it down. Keep turning it, pressing it down, pressing it down. You can feel when you hit the cables. As long as you don't press too hard, you won't nick or cut the cables. And then once you've done that, you can just sort of bend it. It's hard to do it with one hand, but you're going to bend it, and then you're going to see where you've missed. So you can see that, you can see the copper. So I'll bend it until I can see, and then I'll push the knife into where it needs to cut through. And eventually you'll be able to bend it, and it'll just split, and then you can pull it off. You need to be careful not to nick these strands. We just want to cut the rubber, and like we say, you can rip it if you push it like that with your thumb. So I'm going to do that, get that ready, so it's like that, and then we can get the heat shrink on and then press these on. The heat shrink I'm using is a 25mm, which shrinks 2 to 1, so it should shrink back to like 12.5mm. These are about 18mm, I think. Well, this is a 19mm. I already had 19mm, and I forgot to put it onto the cable before I put the lug on. So you can put them on after, but this, because it being 19mm, is a lot difficult to get over the lug. So I'm going to get them on first, and then I can get these pressed on. You can see the red one just about fits, and the black one has got a little bit more room. So it's better to go with this black one, because once it heats up, it'll shrink back to the right size anyway, as it has done here. These are ready to press now. I'm going to get this out and set it up. This one comes with different size clamps in them. I think this goes up to 120mm, but I just need 95. The way this thing works is you remove this pin. It has like a little ball on the end there, spring ball, so it doesn't slide out or fall out when it's in. And then you open the jaws, you put it in there, put the lug in there, and then you've got to turn it on. And once you finish, you just turn it off and the piston goes back in. So you turn it on, and you're going to need a flat platform to put it on because it's quite hard to pump. Once it starts to press near to the end, you've got to make sure that these two bits of the jaws close. Once you get close to the end, you really have to put some pressure with cable in this size. So I'm going to get this done and show you how it looks once it's crimped. I've got it locked in the machine now, so one thing I want to say before you start pressing is you want to make sure your lugs are in the correct positions. Mine are both flat on top of the batteries, so I want this one and this one to match. That's just about got it, but I can move it in there. As soon as I press that one more, it's going to start to shape that lug. This one is done, so you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on the jaws. Once they're pressed together and you can see it's tight, then stop pumping. You don't want to break the machine. And there you can see the piston, and I should be able to just wind that off and you'll see the piston roll back in. Just like that, and then that's one done. I'm going to get the red one done now and then go and fit them to the batteries. One last thing I wanted to show you with this press. It sometimes flattens out these bits and they get stuck in the jaws. So when you're nearly done, just take it out, reposition it, so turn it one notch so that these bits are into these internal corners there, and then you'll get a better press on that. So I'm going to just whack that back in there and then press it again. Now I just need to do this heat shrink. This is a bit tight to get on here, but it's on there, so that's all that matters. I have actually got a heat gun, but yeah, I'm just going to do it with a lighter now. I've got it all out ready, and it's just as easy as that, really. If you've got a heat gun, it is better. And I'll turn it around and do the other side. And there we go. That is one set of cables done and ready to fit to the batteries. These two cables are done now. One thing I oversaw was the thickness of the cable. Now I don't like how this sits, it's really bending up over this. So I'm going to get some terminal extensions which will raise these lugs up, and that means I have to stop here because my next cables would be going straight up to where the inverter buzz bars will be. So I'm going to put a 90-degree lug on there to go up, so I will fit it on the cable and then just bolt it back to the buzz bar for now. And then when I know the exact length, I can just bolt this cable on there and bring it up and cut it off to the right height. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll leave this until I get these extensions. So my terminal extensions come. I actually done this yesterday morning, and then I ordered from Amazon before 10 o'clock, so they come last night. I did put one on, but it was dark, so I had to torch, so I didn't bother doing both. I'm also going to flip this cable upside down because the lug raises up like so. So we've got to get another lug on top of that, so it's going to be easier if it's like that. So them cable terminals, the terminal extensions really are doing some wonders for me. And I've also figured out how I'm going to do this cable. So I was wondering how I'm going to get the fuse on, how I'm going to get either here to here or here to here. So this is what I've finally come up with. So they're pretty much in line. I need to file that lug a bit so I can turn the angle down a bit. But yeah, that's going to go like that. And then the lug goes up there and flicks round the top onto the top of the board in front of the inverter, where it goes into a little junction similar to, hold on, swap hands, this. Now this is rated at 400 amps. Wasn't that impressed with that. It looks a bit small and crappy, but apparently it's 400 amps, so that's what I needed. So that would do, but obviously I'm going to be using a red one. The black one I will just use the shunt as a terminal, but once we get the block on, the platform on top, we'll get that. But yeah, I finally got a plan of how I'm going to wire this up, keeping it all neat, short cable lengths, and without it looking like spaghetti junction. Now they all need to be pretty much straight, or straight-ish, because you can't really bend this cable very much. But yeah, now I've got a plan. I'm going to get on with this, and I'll obviously update you with what's going on, how I'm doing it as I go through the video. just doing a small connection between the battery and the isolator. Bit of a tricky cable because it's so small, but I'm going to do this with a heat gun on this one just to show you how much easier it is, because I'm going to do a few today that's worth getting it out. To make sure these are both in correct alignment before I press it, I'm just putting them together. This one's pressed and done, but this one isn't yet. I've just pushed it in and I've put a black mark on there so I know where to line it up when I press it. I've now done the connection between the fuse and the isolator and made my next cable, which connects to the isolator, which will then go to the junction. So now I'm at the point where I need to lay the platform and then plan the connections before the inverter. So I am now going to take all this off, that means power off and everything now, put this platform on and then start getting this junctions planned. Then we can finally get the inverter fitted, which I'm quite excited about. I've got my deck fitted now, and I've also fitted the shunt. Now this side is the battery only side and this is the load. Last time I went from here to my bus bar, then all my outputs from there, but if I was to do that again I would have to run another cable like this size to here and then this to here, and it makes like too many thick cables, so it works better here. This is directly in front of the inverter, so the cable length of the inverter as short as possible, so I thought that was the best way of doing it. And then just a small cable to run the bus bar to run the smaller cables and devices that aren't drawing as much power. So that's done. I'm going to not bother about wiring up the inverter yet. I'm just going to get the connections to the batteries, get the junction here, and then I'm leaving it at that because I've got to go to work and then I'll get on with this later. I've now made the cable for the connection between the shunt and the battery, and this cable is 29 centimeters long. So this little one down here was 6 centimeters long, so I need to make the live cable from here to the connection up here 23 centimeters long. That makes the resistance between all the cables exactly the same, which is the best thing to do. I'm going to get this one fitted in now and now make my last bit of cable, which already has one lug on the end, so just got to cut it to length and then position it with this little junction box on there. Okay, so I'm nearly there with the inverter now. I've just got to make a little platform to raise this up. Needs to go about 35 millimeters up, which is perfect. 2 pieces of ply make 36 millimeters. Made a little step like that because it sort of stepped on the sides, so trying to copy the design, use the same material so it all blends in. So I'm going to mount these blocks and I can get the lug sorted on here. I'm probably going to need, once I've got this block mounted, I'll put the lug on this terminal and then I can line this up and mark the angle the lug needs to be to the cable, get that pressed on, and then I can connect that on there. Then I can just finally connect this cable down there. I've connected it like that, shouldn't really do that, but I did turn it off earlier when I went out because it's unfused at the moment. But anything else here is fused anyway, so it's only the cable that's unprotected. That's fused, this is fused, everything that comes out of this box is fused. So yeah, it's only this bit of cable that's unprotected, but I've ordered a new one of these. I will just join up to this for now, and yeah, the cables from the battery are all protected. It's only 200 amps, so it will protect these and this, but until I get my 400 amp I'll just swap that over and put the new terminal on here for this smaller cable, which does all the supply and the other stuff I've got going on. So anyway, back to the job in hand. I'm going to get this done. It'd be nice to have this circuit done. That won't be the inverter wired up, but it's just a case of 2 cables to the inverter, and then I can run my input and my output and then fire it up. I've done this one now, so this just curves around here and it's a bit tight, but it goes on there. It needs to come out the end of that straight because it's got a little holder on there to protect the cables. But before I do that, I'm going to make this cable into here. This one needs to go at the bottom, so the height lines up. It's a little bit higher than that, but it should be okay. So I'm going to get that sorted, and then I can finally bolt this one onto here. Now I've not got a fuse for it at the moment, but it's okay. I'll just turn it off till the fuse comes, but then I'm going to put another terminal fuse on here, same as this, and then I'll swap the fuses because that's a 200, so I need that one for this one, and then I'll get the new 400 on there. So I'm going to get that cable connection done, and then I can finally bolt down the live terminals, and that will be that bit done, and then I can move on to making the connection to the inverter via the shunt. Okay, so we're ready to wire up the inverter. I'm going to start on this positive terminal, so I'm just going to get this lug crimped on first, and then I'll put the cable in and mark roughly where it's going, and I can cut it and get this side crimped on, and then we can do that connection. And then we're going to move on to the positive, but I don't think I can do that because I've only got one lug left, and I obviously need two. I've got the M10 for the shunt, but I'm a lug short. I don't know how. Must have miscalculated because I've got 10 lugs, unless I've put one somewhere. But I think, yeah, maybe I have not got enough lugs, which sucks because it's about 8 o'clock at night, so I can't get one until tomorrow, and I don't think I've got time to get one till Monday, really. It's Friday now. I'm going away for the weekend, so yeah, it would have been nice to get this running before I went away, but I don't think I will. That's that little cable done. What I've just realised is I have to fit this in the inverter. I might be able to do it with this cover on. I have to like slide this down, so I might be able to do it with the cover on. Or I might have to just unscrew this and then fit it all to the inverter, and then when I drop the inverter in place, screw this down. This one's alright because the screw goes straight through into the shunt, so that I can lower the inverter down with the cable on. But I can't do any more than that because I don't have any heat shrink for this, and I don't have a lug for this. I have one for this side, an M10, this is an M8, and I don't have one because I've counted up, and there is obviously one on the ground, so that was my extra one that I didn't account for. So I needed 11 in total. I bought a pack of 10, and yeah, and I bought enough of these, but yeah, I'm one short, so I'm gonna have to come back to this, and yeah, I'll figure out how to get all these wires done. I might just get these all wired up so they're cut to the right length, and drill holes down here so the cables are all neat, and get it all ready so that when I get my parts I can just put it all together quickly. Okay, so back to working on the inverter. I've just done this cable. I just got this earlier, so I'm now going to get the lug on here, measure, mark where I'm going to cut it, get this one done. Right, the battery cables are all wired up now. It's a bit tricky with these ones because it has to go through there, but it also has to go down. So obviously we had to take this faceplate off, put them through there, push the faceplate down so they went onto the terminals, put the nuts on loosely. This I took off previously, and then once that was in place, the nut was loose on there, so I just lifted that up and twisted this under, and then once I got this faceplate screwed on and in place, I then screwed this down lastly. This one was a bit easier because the bolt just drops through. I am going to have to get a longer bolt because there being 3 terminals on there. I couldn't get the sprung washer in there, but that's not a problem at the moment because this is mainly for when you're driving, vibrations and stuff, and I'm not going anywhere at the moment. I should be able to get one of these. I think City Electrical Factors actually do these bolts. So I think they're 15mm. I just need a 20mm bolt, and then I'll be able to get that in there. So I'll get that done tomorrow. But for now, that's easy. Just undo that, and that comes out. All of this lot has to come off to get this off. So this is all done. Now I've got my fuse holder on here. So this is fused at 200 amps. So, and then obviously I've swapped this for a 400 amps. So this is all this cabling is fused up to the inverter at 400 amps, and then from here is at 200 amps. So yeah, I'm happy with how it's looking. It's quite a neat job considering the big fat cables and all the close proximity. That's the best way I could do it, but I'm happy with that. It looks pretty neat. I've got another isolator here as well. Obviously you know that, I've shown you in the video. So The thing I'm going to have trouble with is getting this plate back on, because there's 2 screws here and I haven't really got much room on the other side, so I'm probably going to have to use a little screwdriver, a bit like that, and then I'll get a spanner on it at the end to tighten it up. But before we do that, everything's tightened down, power's back on. It's night time now, so I need it on. I've been doing it with a torch. I'm going to have to tighten these terminals down there on these, which I'll do with a ratchet and an extension bar. So I'm going to do that now, because I had a bit of play on there before I got this bolted down, this screwed back in, so I could get it in the right place. But now these are all bolted down, now I can tighten that, because if I needed to move these terminals left and right, I didn't want to tighten them down, but until these are all done. So I'm going to tighten them down now, and then I can proceed with getting these cables in here. There is one other thing, I will put it in a picture after this, that for some reason there's no earth to ground bonding on here, so we have to put a relay in, which is going to go up here. Now it joins to these cables, so it can go anywhere in the line, but I will probably, I don't know where I'm going to put it yet actually. Basically I'm going to have to probably run these cables into it first, or a junction box, and then I will run from the junction box to here, and then the same here. I'll probably put them in there and drop them down. I'll figure that out in a bit. Apparently it just throws up a fault when you plug in the sockets, if you would put a socket tester in. But for now, I don't need to worry about that. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to do it. In fact, I have this relay here. This is the relay. Apparently it will all work fine, but if you put a socket tester in the 240 sockets, it's going to throw up a fault code, or a earth fault or something like that. But this here, it comes with, it fits into a sort of an RCD. So the thing at the back is called a DIN rail, I think. It clips onto this, so they give me one of these, which I could just bolt to there, but I might get a little consumer unit box just so it looks neater, but we'll see how that goes. The other thing is just to clip it on there and bolt it on there, but it's not going to look that great, it's just going to look a mess. So yeah, I might get a little consumer unit box. So that's why I'm not going to do that right now, and it doesn't really disturb any of these cables. These are all the tricky ones. I did previously wire this up the other day because I was going to bypass it, but I can't do that because it needs the 12 volts to start the bypass. So anyway, yeah, that's another job. For now, I'm probably just going to get these cables wired up to here, and we're going to test the inverter. I've also screwed it down. I need to get some bigger screws and do the other side, but just I'm not going to bother doing the other side now. Like I say, I'm not driving, so it's not going to go anywhere, but I'm going to get some bigger screws. It's heavy, and if there's a bump or something, we don't want it pulling on these screws, the weight, so we need this all to be secure because it is very heavy. But anyway, I'm going to get these cables done, and then yeah, probably turn it on, and then we can get some 240 sockets plugged in. Mainly my dehumidifier is what I want to get plugged in. And the annoying thing is, because I've gone through this system, I can't just plug in my hookup and to run my sockets, because it runs through here and then it needs the 12 volts to start. I was going to bypass them, but I've got all the components I need to do now, so there's no point bypassing. I might as well just turn it on, and then I can actually run the sockets off the batteries and test the inverter. So my AC cables are now done. I previously had stripped this one and put the ferrules on it. But this one, now I drilled a hole in there, threaded it up through here, and then we've wired it into the output, and that goes to my consumer unit. And I also flipped this around because this little cover had open ends either end, and it has punch throughs there but you can knock out, but there's no point knocking it out if I have an open end over there. So done it like that, it looks a bit neater. And now I'm going to put this on top, but I'm not going to put the screws in this because there is a remote control which goes here, so I can wire this up and send it into the front of the van, because when the bed's in, I am unable to sit where I'm sitting right now. So I'm not going to screw that on, and I'm not going to wire up the remote now. I think it just plugs in, it goes through there, it plugs in. I'm probably not going to show it in this video because I need to wire it through wherever I'm going to put it to. And it's just a remote control just to turn it on and off. So when you have the remote control, you just leave this off and then you power it on and off from the control. So before you turn it on, you want to make sure nothing is plugged into here and nothing is powered on, because it's not good for the inverter for it to try and send current as soon as you've turned it on. So I'm going to turn it on now, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set the battery. So I've got lithium. When you turn it on, the fan comes on for a minute. So I am now going to set the program. I can't really hold it because I need to get over there, but you're going to have to look through the manual to do this and then see what program you need for your batteries. I'm going to do that, and then that is set up. And I'll probably do a different video on the relay, because it will work right now, but apparently if we just put a electrical plug tester in it, it's going to send a fault code, but it will work. So I'm not bothered about this this relay right now, because I want to put it into a little consumer box like this. This box should be covered up, but it's okay. So yeah, I'm going to put it into a little consumer box and put it down there, and then I'll have to take this cable out into this box and then put a new cable back to here. But for now, that is the inverter done, and I'm just going to program it to my batteries now, and then there's a lot of programs and stuff you can go through to set it how you want it to set it. I've just set my inverter to lithium batteries, and now we've got 230 volts, so I'm ready to use this system. I've already plugged in this and turned it on the switch, so I'm just going to turn him on, and now we have 230 volts in the camper van. I'm now plugged into my electrical hookup, which is outside there on the van, and then it plugs into my house. So we're getting 227 volts, and then the output is the same, obviously, because it goes in here and then back out. So it just bypasses this inverter, basically. It still picks up what it's doing, so this means it's plugged into the hookup. This is the inverter, and this is the battery charging sign, and it flashes as well. So basically, when these batteries get to 12.5 or lower, it will start charging, and then when it gets to 13.7, it will stop. And it all does that automatically, and it also transfers from the battery power to the hookup automatically. So all I've done was plugged it in, and it stopped using my battery power and it started using the grid power, and it also started charging these batteries. So that's why this is such a good unit, because when you plug in, it will charge your batteries, it will save your batteries by using this, and you don't have to do anything. I can just switch between these sockets by using battery. I don't have to have a separate sockets for the inverter and for the 230 system, so it can all be combined. It makes life a lot easier. So that's that. There is one last thing on here that I didn't cover and I forgot to say about it, was that there is a earth point. Now we've got the ground, this is ground for the negative, but then the 230 volt system has an earthing system as well, which I haven't done on here either. So what I need to do is I need to find a separate earth block on the van, which is probably going to be over here, and then I can have an earth block, and I will connect this to the earth block and this to the earth block. That means that everything is earthed, and it will send the earth back to the house. I've got my earth cable in now. They recommend 8 AWG, which is the same as 10mm squared UK. I actually had to drill a hole in here because it wasn't a hole, which was strange. Maybe it's dependent on which side you want to have your earth, so they allow you to drill your own hole. I don't know, but I'm drilled a hole here and then put a little rubber grommet in there, and then it's bolted down there. So now that's done, I can put this inverter back in place, and then I'm going to have an earth block here. But I'm going to cover that in a different video, the earthing. There's my earth cable. It's a bit hard to get high flex cable that's the green and yellow, so I'll be just putting some heat shrink on that so we know that it's an earth cable, and then this earth block will go up here somewhere once I put this unit in here, which is going to be for the relay and this cable here. So that's as far as I can do with that one now, but I will be making another video on the earthing and probably the relay at the same time, because it's all, the relay is to do with the earth bonding. So that's that. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And stay tuned to see how this camper van turns out. My next job, I'm going to be working on the bathroom and fitting the shower. The bathroom was pretty much built, but I ran out of time. But it was usable for a bucket wash. So I'm now going to actually get the shower going. so I can finish the kitchen walls, because I need to run pipes up there. But before I do that, I'm going to finish off some of these little jobs that aren't finished in the back here. I need to try and seal up these ceiling parts, because my breath is now condensating on the walls, hence the dehumidifier. See you in the next video.